Hi everyone, I'm Jane Trotter and this is Accelerando Piano. Today we're going to launch straight into drawing the treble clef and the bass clef. They're not always easy to draw, especially the treble clef can be a little bit tricky, but I'll take you through some little tips and tricks to help you do that. First off though, I'm sure you've seen them before, but just in case you haven't, the treble clef is the curly guy on top and the bass clef is the one on the bottom stave. For our high sounding notes on this side of the piano, the right hand, they would use notes in the treble clef. And for the low sounding notes, the bass clef, our left hand, that's there. So, if you think of some other instruments too actually, like the violin or the flute, they would read their music in the treble clef because they are high sounding instruments. If you think of double bass or the cello or the tuba, for example, they're lower sounding instruments, so they'd be reading their music in the bass clef. But for piano, of course, we've got a really wide range of notes, so we get to use both. Okay, so let's dive into drawing some of these things, and we'll start off with drawing the treble clef because that's the trickier one. So I'm going to start off with starting on the G line, and that would be the first thing to do. Start at the bottom, you do that little curve around. Next thing, I would start to add in another curve up that way. Next thing, I'm just going to keep going. So we start around the bottom, we go up, and you can see what's coming after that. It's a bit like a swan, that one. The next one is you're going to start at the bottom, you do that little curve around, you go up, and then you swing it down, and there it is. The bass clef, which is much, much easier to draw, you will start on this line here. You go up and down, and then you put your two dots either side, like that. If I draw that treble clef one again, see that's our trickier one. So we start there, let's go really slowly around, start at the bottom, go around, go up, flip it over, and then you've got the little hook at the bottom. Now, some of the things you don't want to do, so get rid of those. One thing you definitely want to be careful of is when you're doing your treble clef, that you make sure you do start on the G line on this one. Treble clef is also called the G clef because this bit here starts around the G line. So you definitely want to be starting there. You could draw a beautiful treble clef, but if you started too high, that would be wrong. Likewise, if you started too low down on this guy, you could draw a beautiful treble clef, but nope, no good for that one either. Obviously, we don't want to be too wide with it. So this guy would be kind of overkill. And we also don't want to be too small, like that. So, things to think of, main thing to think of, is it's got to be around that G line to start, curls up, comes down. Your bass clef, you want to start on the F line, and this is because this does here. This is also known as the F clef. So you want to make sure you're starting there. Don't go way down too far, and don't be too small either. The other really important thing with your bass clef is that the dots must go in those top two spaces. Again, you could draw a beautiful bass clef, but if your dots are down there, that is wrong. Likewise, if your dot, you might have the first one okay, but if you did your other dot down there, nope, no good. That is wrong. And just for something extra random, if you did that and put your dots on the other side, that is also wrong. So, those are just a couple of tips for how to draw your treble clef and your bass clef. Particularly if you're doing a lot of theory, you'll be drawing those all the time. And in an exam, sometimes they do actually have you drawing those, and they will assess you on whether you've got them in the right place or not. So you want to make sure you get it absolutely right. So certainly have a practice at the treble clef. I know that's a harder one to draw. Just feel a nice sort of sweep in your hand as you go around. It's fun to draw. It took me, when I was starting out, I remember practicing it actually. It took me a while to get it, but once you've got it, piece of cake. So hope that's helpful. Have fun practicing drawing your treble clef and your bass clef.